Hey everybody, if you like shirtless videos like this one, be sure to check out my website, straightfelon.com. It's also the best way to get in contact with me. I answer all messages with videos. Thank you. Welcome back to part 2 of my gay prison survival guide. In this chapter, I'm going to more so give you just 2 examples of what can go wrong when you choose to enter a sexual or romantic relationship in prison. The first part of the guide was more basic. This is kind of my attempt not to dissuade, but to at least let people know the very, very real risks that come if you choose to be in a relationship or have sex in prison. When I used to do my shows, people would, it was the most asked question: did you have sex in prison? And this, regardless of me being straight, because there's trans women in prison, I didn't, and there was a couple factors why. For one, getting caught, then losing your parole, that's a big one. But there's a safety issue, and I'm going to get into that with these 2 examples of what can go wrong. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for all the website signups and Twitter follows. I thank you so much. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and check out my website. Follow my Twitter. Thank you so much, and let's get into it. So I'm going to tell you a story about why you should maybe think twice before you get in a romantic or sexual relationship in prison. This is just one way that it can go wrong. So let me introduce you to the 2 characters of this story first of all. The first one was a guy named Rufus, which first of all, I can't imagine holding like a baby in your arms and being like, I'm going to name you Rufus. It's like an old man's name. Had to be an uncle or something. Anyways, Rufus was a goofy guy, man. He was one of these dudes that got in trouble when he was real young and got sentenced to a whole gang of time. He had like an armed robbery, I think, and he had already done like 15 years on it, got put in the system when he was 17. So this dude had, he came of age in prison, and there's kind of a good chance he might have been a virgin before he came into prison. That happens to a lot of guys. And, the thing is though, a lot of those black dudes in MDOC that done 10, 15 years, started off in the 90s, a lot of them are pretty hardcore and tough and intimidating. And Rufus was not. He was just a goofy, people carry themselves in different ways, man. And when you're kind of more of a goofy guy, it stands out in prison. I remember he just, I didn't know him that well, but he'd like come by my bunk and he'd, hey, John boy, man, let me get a honey bun. I'd be like, man, I don't got any honey buns, Rufus. You's a motherfucker, John boy. You's a motherfucker with your shit. He'd always say, you's a motherfucker with your shit. And then, but what really would get us is we'd see him, chasing the sissies, as we used to say around the yard. We'd see him, with an armful of cookies and honey buns, bringing them up, to pay tribute, I guess. That's why he's always asking me for honey buns. Stop giving yours away, dude. But yeah, we'd see him, chasing him around, giving him food and stuff. And we never like called him out on it or anything. That's something you can't really, like I said, he wasn't a super tough guy, but he had done enough time where like, we ain't gonna make fun of him like that, and that's why I talk about the double standard. If I would have been on something like that, I would have definitely been excommunicated from the white guys. It's, like I said, it depends who you are, but he did end up getting in some trouble over this. So let me introduce you to the second character. The second guy, we're just going to call him Mike X. I can't remember his name for the life of me. So my introduction to this guy, he was an older black Muslim dude who had also done a gang of probably 20 plus years. He was older. And he used to always be on the yard with a young boy. And I know those guys, they all say that's against the religion and they cannot engage in that. But I'm just going to be honest, man. We all hear stories about it. We all see it. It happens. And he was also, dealing in contraband. So that's how I originally met him. And I'll note that usually, because I spent a lot of money in there, usually those guys who had contraband welcomed me with open arms. Here, how much credit do you want, John boy? Go ahead. We know you're good. They're very friendly because I was the cash cow. Not this dude, man. He was like, I ain't getting nothing till the money hits. So anyways, I'm out there negotiating this deal like goddamn Donald Trump, man. We're going at it. And we're out by the softball field. And this he's on the bench kicked back. And the whole time we're negotiating this deal, he's getting his foot rubbed. Socks off, bare feet, getting his foot rubbed by the young boy. And I swear, man, I walked in on people getting and giving head. That foot rub messed me up, man. I like stumbled in my sentence. I was like, yeah, the Western Union is going to be, hey, man, can you stop doing that for a second? You know, talking about the boy rubbing his feet. I tell you, this dude cut into me. Motherfucker, don't talk to him. Mother, get the fuck. He wouldn't talk to me. I had to send like an intermediary. And that's like kind of a common thing. Some of those guys that are real kind of on the kill whitey stuff, they won't even talk to you directly if you're white. They'll like send a flunky. So yeah, and let me put a disclaimer in here. Probably two of the most solid people I met in MDOC were Black Muslim guys. It's, first of all, MDOC is like 30% Black Muslim. So it's a huge demographic. I can't say they're all like on some kill whitey shit. You know, and there's like so many different groups in between, but I'm going to be honest too. A lot of those guys, it's like being locked up with frickin' Farrakhan. They don't like you and they're not afraid to let you know it. So anyways, I didn't know that Rufus, some of those, you know, cookie tributes he had been giving out were to that boy. We didn't know this. I didn't know this actually until later. So one night I'm up in my bunk reading. Keep in mind, it's like I'm in a cubicle, like it's called a 8-man cube. It's, like I said, like a big office cubicle. I'm on the top bunk. And neither Rufus or Mike X bunk in my cube, like they're in other parts of the unit. And I'm, you know, sitting there reading my book, and all of a sudden I see motion out of the side of my eye. And I look over, and it's freaking Rufus, and he's getting chased by Mike X, and Mike X has a knife. Now let me try to describe the prison setup. It's like, you know, we got this pretty small cube, and there's a big metal desk right here. And then behind me here, lockers. So Rufus is pinned with the lockers to his back, and the table has been pushed up this way. So he's literally pinned. He's got this big metal table here, and the lockers behind him. And this Mike X guy is slashing at him with a knife. Rufus don't got no weapon or nothing. I swear to God, I'm not making this up. Rufus was dodging those knife shots and counterattacking like freaking Jason Bourne. I've never seen anything like it. The dude couldn't actually move. He could only kind of like move his torso, and he's dodging every knife shot and counterattacking. And the whole time talking shit. Oh, you got a banger, huh? You won't throw them things. And this dude's coming at him with a knife, and the dude can't get him. And it's getting me pumped because, like, Rufus wasn't my homeboy, but I liked him a lot more than the other guy. I kind of wanted to throw him a weapon, like, take my padlock and put it in a sock real quick and even up the odds. Anyways, Mike X, the knife ain't working. You know, most knives in there are pretty short. So he throws that to the side, grabs our broom, cracks it in half, and then I'll never forget this. He says, "Let's go fishing." And he starts going, tap, 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 and stabbing at Rufus. It's like at his eye. Once again, Rufus is dodging every shot like he's in the freaking Matrix and swinging back and landing it on this dude. And eventually, like, everybody's watching, Mike X looked like a freaking fool. He looked stupid. And he ended up just giving up. And Rufus ended up walking away from that one. And I remember, man, I went up to him the next day on the compound and I was like, "Dude, I know, like, I might tease you sometimes, but you are an undercover knockout artist." That was amazing. Let me catch my breath real quick. Okay, so that was more a story warning on what can happen on the relationship side, the jealousy and what that can do. But there's also another end to that. And, if you've watched my videos, you know I have a strong phobia of bloodborne diseases, which is wild that I ever, shared needles and whatever. But anyways, this leads into the next story. So I was a bathroom porter, which meant, like, first thing in the mornings, I'd go clean out the bathrooms, the showers or whatnot. And I would, this is kind of gross, I would find stuff in there. And eventually I knew what it was. I remember I was training a new guy and he was like, "I keep finding these Pepsi bottles in the shower and first thing in the morning. Who's drinking Pepsi in the shower?" And I told him, I said, "Dude, that's, people are using those to douche. That's why they're in the shower." And he's like, what the fuck? He's freaking out. And that leads into another thing. Sometimes I would also find like sandwich bags, which the only thing I could put together was homemade condom. Now, I didn't know enough about having sex in prison to know exactly like if that's something people do, but I've heard of it. It just seems not possible. You only get sandwich baggies in there, so you'd have to have a kind of a small piece, it seems like. But anyways, I can see, it's kind of, when you think about it, it's kind of screwed up that there isn't condoms in there. Just because we know, to be honest, we know that people are going to have sex in there. And disease does get spread. And this is where my story goes. So there's these two dudes in my unit, DX. Now, DX was, once again, one of those guys who, he got put in the system in juvie and stayed in there until, he hadn't been out his whole adulthood. He was maybe like his early 30s. And he had kind of taken this younger kid, Chris, under his wing. And we had heard that from dudes who had like been locked up back in the day that, DX liked boys. And it always did seem like a little bit, I don't know. But also like, nobody ever seen them coming from the shower together or anything like that. So, we never knew, you know what I mean? But it kind of looked a certain way. So one day, Chris is like devastated. He's acting the way that people act when like they get the call from like the minister or whatever, the priest, and like they tell you that a family member has died. He's like not doing good. And, it took about 2 weeks before it came out, but we had heard through the grapevine. And during this time, Chris he locked up. Like he just straight up left the compound one day. We didn't know why. He had gotten diagnosed with HIV. And he had, before he left, it had came out and he had, said some things like, oh, I was an IV drug user in the past. But the thing is, they give you a blood test when you come to prison. And, you're in county jail for a while before you come to prison. So even like, what do they call it? The incubation period, it would be detected. So he definitely got it while he was in prison. And I think he might have tried saying something about tattoo guns, but in reality, we all know what happened. And, I felt so bad for that dude. I can't imagine like that happening. Imagine that's got to be like the worst news you could get. And I know there's all kinds of treatments and stuff now, but that's still, and people sometimes get like real triggered when I, suggest that. That's still something like you might not want to get. But you can, at least in the world, you have the comfort of knowing you can seek the best treatment. Imagine being in prison where the only thing you can do is fill out a kite that they're going to ignore when you have this like thing that needs to be truly taken care of. And that's a real risk, man. I don't think they let you get on prep in prison. A lot of people, and I'm not trying to take this all serious or anything, but a lot of people, ask me questions like, oh, prison, sex, you didn't have sex in there? It's even like, take away the fact I'm straight. It is a real risk, man. That's imagine being in this small space where you literally can't use protection. And people, the same group of people is having sex with each other. It's really like the worst case, the perfect storm of, spreading. It's a really bad idea in that sense. I will say though, like I said, you do get tested when you first go in. So, theoretically you could, seek out a person to show you their paperwork. But like I said in that story, you can get it while you're in there, and it's not like, I don't know why he ended up getting a blood test, because he might have had a feeling, because you don't just get randomly blood tested at MDOC. You just get it the first one when you go in. So, still, I don't even know what to say. That it messes me up even to talk about. So that is, something to take into account. I don't know how much you can trust people that you meet on an app or whatever, but you can probably trust them more than people in prison, unfortunately. So that's definitely like what I would say, like the number one factor on why you shouldn't maybe act on those impulses. It's a big risk and gamble, and you even like forget the big one, HIV. Imagine getting just something that can be treated at the clinic. That ain't gonna, dude. Good luck in prison, bro. You're gonna be waiting 6 months to get in there. They straight up ignore you unless you're bleeding to death. Yeah, that's just not a place where you want to have. You don't want it to burn when you pee in there, man. That's a place where you want your health. Let me tell you. Anyways, that's about all I got for tonight. You guys have been so supportive. My last video was so successful. Thank you so much. I appreciate everyone that signed up for the website. You guys are great. It's been a fantastic year. Thank you so much.